Hi everyone, it's Miss Dragonfly back again, here to bring you another segment on love and life as it really is. If you haven't heard by now, there was a recent MMA bout in Poland between a man and a woman. Yes, you heard that right. No, there was no transgender involved. It was a cis male and a cis woman. Now, what was expected to happen did happen. And MMA fans were disgusted to see a woman being beaten up by a man. The female here, Ula Sikaz, I think that's how you pronounce her name, is actually an arm wrestler and a fitness instructor that regularly shows off her bulging biceps online. So she was no shrinking violet, a very well-built woman herself, but they were not enough to defend herself against Piotrek Muboy. I think that's how you pronounce his name. So once he had her pinned down, he was raining heavy blows on her that the referee, as you can see, had to come in and stop the match. This is just sick. And I wonder whose ridiculous idea this was. I'm very surprised that this actually happened in Poland, because Poland is a European country and European countries are conservative in nature. That's the way it is. I mean, whether or not it's Eastern Europe, Middle East or Far East, as long as you're East, anything Eastern is conservative. And the further east you go, the more conservative it gets. As for the female competitor, you're going to have to wonder why she agreed to do it. My guess was that she thought she was strong enough, and if she could do it and pull it off, it would have been a great victory for her. But like I say, biology does overrule and does reign the day. And the MMA fans, of course, could see the ridiculous situation for what it was, and there has been a huge backlash and harsh criticism about it from them. However, this isn't the first time you had a biological man beat up a biological woman in an MMA match. A few months ago, there was an official MMA match between a transgender woman and a biological woman competing. Remember, a transgender female is someone that was born male and then transitioned through medication and surgery and whatnot to have the appearance of a female. The narrative is that since this person has taken estrogen, their testosterone levels has been significantly reduced, and so it's now the strength should now be comparable to a biological female who has stayed that way. Do you buy it? This trans MMA fighter, who now goes by the name of Alana Lortland, a few months ago beat up the female opponent. You see, Alana had spent a good 30 years as a man. Now, not only spent all that time as a man, but was someone from the US Army Special Forces, not just a regular soldier, one with specialist training. Now here's a before and after photo of Alana. Look at those muscles. Back then, that is a fully fledged masculine male which is actually an above average male, considering the fighting abilities, not only fighting abilities, and the strength that this person has built up through all the training. You build up your muscles and your bone density. Now, I wasn't sure whether or not to show the video, but Let's have a look at this news coverage of the actual match.
Brutal victory of a transgender woman and former US Special Forces sergeant over a female opponent in a mixed martial arts fight really split critics. Some are applauding it as a key step to equality, while others are appalled at what they call a dangerous mismatch between a female and a biological male. Earlier I got the details from RT's Alexia Rojewski.
Alana McLaughlin from South Carolina is only the second athlete in the history of mixed martial arts to compete, being an open transgender. She won her fight last Friday against a female opponent, and that ended in a second round with a rear naked choke, which is quite a brutal way to end a mixed martial arts bout. That caused a lot of controversy among pundits and experts who said that this was an unfair advantage, primarily because Alana was born Ryan McLaughlin, spent 6 years in the US Special Forces before starting her transition in 2010. That's why many of the pundits in MMA, and very renowned pundits as well, said that this was unfair, irrespective of how one treats the rights of transgender people. They all said they supported the rights of transgender people, but from a sporting perspective, this was unjust. Let's listen.
Alana McLaughlin transitioned 5 years ago, which means that she lived 33 years of her life as a man. Tonight, McLaughlin fought and beat a biological woman. What a shock, this is nonsense.
This is Alana McLaughlin, a female who won her first MMA fight against someone born a woman. I think people can identify with whatever they like, but I don't think this has a place in combat sports. You'll think this is okay and empowering to transgenders?
Interestingly enough, not only MMA pundits were outraged with such fight taking place, but also feminists. A couple of prominent feminist accounts tweeted out that this looks like basically a woman's abuse from a biological male. Yeah. Let's listen to that as well.
Male violence against women as a public sport? No thank you.
Whether you tuck it up or chop it off, take estrogen pills or dye your hair pink, a male will always be a male and cannot change into a female.
This is so hideous. How can anyone bear to watch or even think that this is normal or acceptable?
Alana herself said that she didn't buy any of this criticism, stating, first of all, that she was battered for 2 rounds, being, fought against by a very equal opponent, and also the fact that all the kind of criticism coming her way is just mere transphobia. That's what she described it. But I have to say, this is not the first case of, obviously, transgenders in sports. Let's go back to the Tokyo Olympics in 2020, where 4 transgender athletes made their debut for the first time in the history of Olympics, and it's also the second time in MMA. There was a fighter, Fox Fallon, retiring in 2014, also a transgender. But as we can see, this issue is still very divisive, especially when it comes to combat sport.
Idaho State Representative Barbara Ehert believes it would only be fair for athletes who undergo a gender transition to compete against others who have done the same.
Every sport, every division, whether it's high school, collegiately, internationally, the Olympics, we're all dealing with this right now because it's increasing in its velocity, and the participation of biological boys and men in our women's sports is increasing. Even though it's hard to see someone get beat up and to be forced to compete against a biological male, it's stories like this that you're covering that will only help our issue moving forward. I would absolutely be supportive in helping to provide opportunities for an entirely new category, and that would be of those who have transitioned from one biological sex to the other. If they did not want to compete on the side of their biological sex, because again, let's remember that none of them are being kept from competing on the side of their biological sex. We're literally talking something that seems more demented and completely unfair when we put a biological girl and a biological male in the ring together to fight. We're not playing on even grounds right now.
Now, what did you expect was going to happen? And what are people trying to achieve by denying biology and nature? When you go through puberty with all that testosterone pumping through the body, that results in an increased lung capacity, heart capacity, muscle mass, bone density, and no amount of estrogen is going to undo all that. You see, when you have greater bone density, you will of course be able to hit harder And the greater lung capacity and heart capacity means greater stamina. And I have no illusions that I can defeat a male in hand-to-hand combat, because the reality is, this arm is always going to hit harder than this arm. There is no two ways about it. That is going to happen. Men and women are built differently, but it doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It's just different, and we should not try to pretend that that's not the case. Let me ask you, would you race a 500cc motorcycle against a 125cc one? No, because a bigger bike with a greater power is always going to win any race against the 125cc. However, you're not going to say that that 500cc bike is better than the 125cc bike unless you were just after that type of function, that type of bike to do that type of speed. But they're both sold, which means they both are needed, and because they both serve a different purpose. I mean, if 500cc bikes are always best, then, and could be used for anything, then we'll only see 500cc bikes being sold. Come on. So why would you insist that men and women both be able to do the same thing in order to be equal? I mean, we are both built differently, so we're better at different things, and we have different instincts, and we are this way because we serve a different function, we have a different purpose, we like different things, we're different, and that is diversity. So what do you think? What do you make of all this? Should men and women be competing against each other in everything, including combat sports such as MMA, judo, boxing? I'd like to see that one. And what would you enjoy seeing that sort of thing? Or are you on the other persuasion and thinking, well, it's pretty obvious that's going to happen. I don't want to see the same thing that I expect to see every time, which is the man beating up on the woman. I mean, it's uncomfortable viewing. Yeah, admit it. It's very uncomfortable for us to be watching that sort of thing, because you can see it's just like, I think if children have the same rights as adults, don't they? But children don't have the same capacity as an adult. And what would happen if I was to go and have a match up with a 5-year-old child? I'll beat the child. And I'm not going to, that doesn't prove how good I am. I'm beating up someone that has far less capacity than I am. Well, that's my take on that. So what is yours? Let me know what you think by leaving your comments below. And if you've enjoyed the video, then don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Well, that's all for this video, and until next time, remember to stay safe, confident and gorgeous. And until then, it's bye for now.